Welcome to Live, Let, Thrive, a podcast about the Airbnb life, the share economy, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Micah and Steve.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to another exciting episode of Live, Let, Thrive. I am Stevie Stacks, your host, coming at you from Fort Worth, Texas, and this is your favorite short-term, mid-term, long-term rental podcast in the world. And we have a great show today. We have a special guest today, Mr. David Pere. Is it Pere?
Hooray.
Pere. Oh, very fancy. David Pere, Mr. Military to Millionaire himself. And we're going to talk a lot of things about, financial freedom, financial independence, especially for people in the military, but it's for, advice for everybody. So I'm excited to get him on board. This is like our third or fourth military person. We've had a few, and
Nice.
Military is good at breeding success. It should be. And we're going to have a great show. Welcome to the show, David. And thank you for your service. And yeah, let's talk some shop.
Thanks for having me, Stevie.
All right, man. So how'd you get your start? Well, yeah, how did you go from the military to investing in real estate?
Yeah, I joined in 2008 because typical reasons, right? No idea what I wanted to do for school, no money for school, wanted to get the hell out of Arkansas. And the military's does a pretty good job of allowing you a time to leave, of wherever you're from. So I wanted some adventures, and the military was just a good option for me. But the first few years I was in, I didn't do diddly when it comes to finances, right? I did all the typical Marine Corps shit. I spent all my money on booze, tattoos, women, protein powder, supplements, gym, Harleys, cars, whatever you want to call it, right? Not intelligently. Booze is probably the main culprit there. And I was 7 years in, and someone handed me Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, huh. I don't really read much. And they handed me a CD and said, well, you drive a lot on your current job. Why don't you just listen to it? And I was like, all right, fine. Why not? Let's see what happens. And yeah, sure enough, I listened to the book and was hooked. And like 4 months later, I bought my first property. And then that kind of reinforced that this works. And so I did it again. And then I did it again. And then, yeah, life was good. So, by the time 5.5 years later, I was coming up on a reenlistment, and I'm doing okay outside of the military. I think I'm gonna go see what I can do on my own. And really, everyone thinks that was like a financial decision. It was really just that the more I got promoted, the more of an office job I had, and I just wasn't fulfilled anymore in the military. It just wasn't the thing. Probably because deployment stopped, and it was like, okay, desk job, office job. I don't know, just wasn't as fun as it was when I first joined. So, yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, you were able to do something to provide you with like a financial independence in a way, if not totally, but you're on your way to it if you didn't have it already. But when stuff comes up in someone's career, and most of the time, most people, most 90 whatever percent of people out there, I used to like this job, it turned to this. Or even if you like your job now, it could always change. You could always get, an a-hole boss, so you can get, something could go a different way. Oh, we're going to change everything up. Most people don't have a choice to leave because they haven't done a side hustle or anything else besides that job. So, oh, well, it sucks now, but I got to stay here because now I got a giant house to pay for, and I got two big ass car bills to pay for. So it's just, to me, it's people are like, well, don't just trust the job. It's going to take care of you. I'm like, no, well, maybe so, but the job could always start sucking. And I'm not doing the side hustle because I love it and it's fun all the time. It's hard work. But it puts me in the position that if something push comes to shove at my job, I could always say, hey, no, I'm not going anymore. See
Mhm.
y'all later.
Yeah, I always try to tell people like I'm not I wasn't, and most people shouldn't be investing just so they can tap out immediately, right? Because you'll realize quickly that you have financial freedom, but most people aren't going to just sit and do nothing all day. And if they are, that's going to get old real quick, right? So you're going to fill that time with more work or something. So you're always going to be doing something. You got to do something you love. But I'm like, dude, it's not about, you know, teaching service members how to achieve financial freedom and be good with their finances so that they quit the military. It's about teaching service members that so that you're not keeping people who, the only reason they stayed is they're stuck financially. Like you don't want service members or vets or any employee who's only staying because of the paycheck. You want people who are bought into the mission, bought into the culture, bought into whatever. And so like, I saw a ton of people who hated what they did, whether military or W-2, and they stay because of, a lack of being set up. And it's like, well, hey, we're giving you the freedom to do it as long as you love it, and then move on.
Yeah, and there's cool perks. I glanced at your video a little bit. You were talking about the VA loan. I mean, that's a huge deal. Most of us got to put, anywhere from 5% to 20% down to get into a house, but you guys can put 0% if you want.
Yeah, it is the best primary residence mortgage in the world. It's amazing and still completely and grossly underutilized.
Mm. And how did you utilize it?
Ironically, I haven't, and I'm a product of exactly what I'm teaching, right? I got talked out of using it by a lender who didn't understand it and told me you could only use it one time. And then I got talked out of using it in Hawaii by a lender who was like, "Oh, nope, the limit's 725. You can't offer on that $740,000 house." Instead of, hey, you just have to put 25% down on that $15,000 difference, which would have been nothing for buying a house in Hawaii.
No,
And so I just, I kept running into like weird things. And then by the time I I was like, okay, I'm going to dig into all this myself. And I figured out what I need to do. I built this platform. I had been buying real estate through other means, more costly means. And then I got out of the military and then I found out what it's like to be unbankable. And so now I'm like this year I am intentionally paying myself a salary and not writing all of the things off so that I can show income so that I can actually use the VA loan next year, hopefully, because right now I'm like, dude, I don't qualify for, like 2 years ago, I tried to buy a house and I had to gift my then wife $17,000 for the down payment so that she could buy it and not have me on the, because I was dragging it down. It's like anytime they brought my finances in, they're like, "Oh, but you lost $150,000 last year." Like, no, I didn't. That's a cost segregation. They're like, "Oh, it shows it right here." And so,
Mm.
yeah, I'm learning all these lessons about the income tax W-2 game the hard way. Because it is hilarious that you can buy millions of dollars in real estate and then not qualify for a $300,000 house for yourself.
That's crazy. Now, we had a guest on the show named Adam Johnson, and
Okay.
he's a military guy out of Tennessee, and he buys houses subject to. You know about subject to?
Yeah.
All right. So what he says, because I know you're saying about qualifying and then showing income and all this stuff, but he said he hadn't gone through a bank in years because he buys it directly, and what gives him an in is because he's a military guy, and a lot of people going through, military people, they'll buy a house somewhere and then they'll have to leave, and it doesn't have any equity. They just bought it, and then they got to go off to somewhere else, and they don't want to they don't want to turn it into a rental. They're just stuck in this position. So he's going in and buying it. A lot of it is zero down. He's kind of taking this problem off of their hands and then doing the subject to. The loan stays in their name, but the mortgage stays in their name, and the deed goes to his name. So that's what I'm trying to get into. He's inspired me in that front. I don't want to jack with banks anymore. I want to just go to an individual owner and say, I know you want this full price for your house. I can give you this down payment, and I can, take over payments from you, and I'll give you a little bit of interest on top, so you'll make money from your money. It's kind of better than a rental. So yeah, I don't know if you've thought about doing something like that, but I think it'd be a great fit.
Yeah, no, I've done a ton of creative deals. I've actually never paid more than 15% down on a property. So whether it's bringing in investors or raising capital or seller financing, lease options, assumptions, all the things. I will say the sub two, I have a love hate. Like it's a great strategy. I think some people abuse it, I think. And so I will say that just from the seller's point of view, right? They hold the bag when you do a sub two. And these guys, like I had a phone call on Friday night with a guy who good friend of mine thinking about selling his house to somebody via sub two, and it's a VA loan at like 2.5%. And I'm like, well, did he tell you that you can't recoup your entitlement? He's like, well, no. He said I could. No, that's a lie. Like you don't get to recoup your entitlement as long as your name's still on that mortgage. So unless he legitimately assumes the mortgage and he's a vet and he replaces your entitlement, then you're stuck. You're on the hook until that house is paid off. And so there's like some weird nuance stuff like that. Like if you're a veteran, you won't recoup your entitlement on that property. You won't be able to buy a home with the VA in the same way, as long as that house is being paid down on the sub two. And then the other thing I don't like about it from a seller's perspective is, no matter what the buyer tells you, push comes to shove, right? If the market tanks and that guy can't hold on to the mortgage and he defaults, the seller's the one getting screwed. It's their credit, it's them on the mortgage, right? And so it's it's great from the investor side because it's super low risk and it's low leverage and it's a really savvy strategy. And there's a lot of perks, but from the seller side, the downside, right, is that like they still hold all the risk. And I'm not a huge fan of it when people don't, like, they try to hide that, right? And I see that, unfortunately, sometimes in the sub two community. So it's like, as long as you're upfront with people and you're like, yo, here's the deal, but like, I'm never, the numbers are great. Like, this is amazing. Um, I've just, I've seen a few people who are a little bit less than upfront about some of that stuff. And I'm like, all right, in that case, I don't know. So I go back and forth. I actually have tried to do a sub two like 3 different times, and my title company has botched it. Like, not their fault, but something has come up every time that like totally wrecked the deal and ended up having to, get creative in another way. So maybe I'm just salty because of that. I'm like, why does this not work for me? But
So what are the rules with the VA? You said that one bank told you you can only do it one time, but you can actually do it multiple times.
oh, dude, there's like no rules with the VA loan. That's
Oh,
what's so funny about all these misconceptions. Like, I mean, there are rules, but like, there's no minimum credit score. If a bank tells you there is, then that's the bank saying that, not the VA. There's no, and so I've seen people down to like 520 buy a house. There's no debt to income requirement. So like with an FHA loan, you can only go up to 45% debt to income, and then you're hosed, you're done. That's it. I've seen people close 70+% DTI properties with the VA loan, and like as long as your lender's cool, you can play that game. I think it was like 78% or something like that on a $2 million duplex. Um, there's there's just a ton of like random nuanced things, but I mean, the long short is that loan is better than basically anything. And it has all these rumors attached to it. Like, people are like, oh, sellers won't take it because it's zero down. That has fucking nothing to do with the seller. Like, who gives a shit? If you get $100,000 put in your bank, do you care how much money the buyer put down? No. Well, if you do, you're an idiot. Like, if I put 0% down and buy $100,000 house, there's no more risk to the seller. You got $100,000 check. You want me to put 20% down just so I'm safer? Mind your own business, And honestly, as a buyer, I would rather have $20,000 in my pocket in case an HVAC goes out and put zero down than have 20% in equity in a home that I can't tap into and no money in my pocket. And then you can back out the math on what $20,000 in an index fund versus $20,000 down on a property does over the life of that mortgage, and you come out light years ahead if you just invest the 20 grand. So there's all these like rumors, and what I've really found is that over the years is like almost all these rumors or stipulations or misnomers about the VA loan stem from a lender or an agent who didn't understand the product and wasn't willing to say, I'm not your guy, go talk to this person. They would say, oh, instead of, I don't understand that loan, you should do the FHA because I do understand that, which is what they're really saying. They're like, oh, the VA loan is not good. You should use this loan. And I'm great with this loan. Like, and that's what it really boils down to, is like they don't understand. And rather than lose a client by being honest, they would rather screw the vet by not knowing what they're talking about and doing the deal anyway. So that's what happened in my situation. The bank was literally marketing to VA buyers, and the guy was like, this is an $80,000 duplex. You can only use the VA loan once. You don't want to waste it here. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. That makes sense. Come to find out, no, you can use the VA loan an infinite amount of times depending on how you do it. And that duplex I paid in the like 6 years I owned it, I think that cost me like $15,000 between down payment, PMI, MIP, whatever. And my monthly payment on it was $81 a month more than it would have been with the VA loan, assuming the exact same interest rate. And so, just from the primary private mortgage insurance. And so it's like little things like that, just eat at you. I mean, what would I have been able to do with an extra $81 a month for 6 years? I don't know. That's not life-changing money. But if you do that on multiple properties, it becomes, quickly, it just eats at you. Like, why am I paying PMI when I shouldn't have been? So there's just a lot of weird things. I mean, the long short is the VA loan can do almost anything. Renovation loans, construction loans, you name it. And if a lender tells you no on something or you can't do that on something, any veteran listening, just say, can you show me where that's in the guidelines? Or is that a lender overlay? And force them to either produce the guideline or admit that it's just their bank doesn't want to do it, which is a totally different thing than the VA loan can't do it. It's them as an institution don't want to do it.
Mm.
Because most of the time it's that.
Wow, wow. And so why do you think the government does give this special type of loan to veterans? Just to be nice, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, it stemmed from, and I'm going to mess up the year. I want to say it was 1945, but it stemmed from coming back from World War II. They realized they'd sent off a huge chunk of the population, and all the guys who'd stayed home and families who'd stayed home now have a leg up because they've been able to buy houses and real estate and do this thing and live their life while, Joe Schmo is in Iwo Jima for 3 years or on the Midway or doing whatever, right? And so they were like, how do we help these guys get into houses now in a way that like they might not have saved a ton of money, or maybe they did, or who knows? But like, so really all it is it's the VA or the government guaranteeing the 25% that would normally come out of pocket on some of these loans. So it's interesting that it's got all these like stipulations because the reason it's such a great product is it's literally the government backing that 25% down. So it's like you imagine, you're a lender and you're like, well, I want to see 20% down, and then the president of the United States or the VA calls and says, it's okay. If he defaults, we'll pay you. Like that's the best guarantor you could possibly have on a loan. Like, oh, the federal government will pay me out of the treasury or out of, whatever if this guy defaults. Like, okay. And so that's kind of the way the program's set up is essentially the VA is guaranteeing 25% of the purchase, and then the bank is really only guaranteeing 75. So it's actually from the bank's perspective, that's why there's no PMI. From the bank's perspective, instead of being like, oh, you put 15% down, we're on the hook for 85% of this, and we're up shit creek on 85% if you don't pay, they're like, oh, it's only 75%. The government's got the other 25. That's a pretty safe bet. So
Nice. So knowing what you know now, if you were fresh in the military, how would you start setting up your life? What would you advice you give to like young soldiers?
yeah, the first thing I'd do is the moment I joined the military, I would start contributing to my thrift savings plan, our 401k. I tell everyone at least 5% so you get the matching contribution, but I would set it at 10% because, as with anything, right? If you take a full paycheck and then you're like, wow, I'm getting $2,000 a month. Oh, hey, what if I invest 10%? Now I'm only getting 1,800. You miss that money. But if you just from the very first paycheck, you're putting 10% in and you never knew that, like you don't even notice the other $200 because it never hit your account in the first place. Mentally, that's a whole lot easier. So I would do it day one, 10%. They ask you about setting that up at boot camp, 10%, maybe even 20%, depending on how aggressive you want to be. And every single time I got a pay raise, I would increase it. So if I get a 3% raise because the Fed said so, then I'd put 1% or 2% in my TSP. If I got a promotion because I hit my 2 year, you get a promotion your first 4 years and on year 2, year 3, year 4. And then after that, it's every even year. So 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Or if you get promoted. So like, oh, hey, I get a pay raise on year 2. Also, I got promoted. Then I had one pay year 3. Then I got promoted again. That, like there's probably 7 to 8 pay raises in that first 4 years you're serving. And if you, every single time you put 1% or 2 or 3%, depending on how big the raise is of your paycheck into that. So let's say you started out at $1,800 a month, hit your bank account, and that's slowly creeping up because you're taking an extra percent or two in your pocket every time you get a pay raise. But so is you're going from 10% to 12, 13, 14, 15 in your account. By the end of 4 years, you're putting 25, 30% in your thrift savings plan. You don't even notice it missing. And that money in that first like 4 years compounding for the next, you're talking by the time you're 22 to 25, compounding for the next 40 years, that alone is enough for you to have a pretty solid retirement on if everything else goes wrong. So I always tell people like, look, that first 4 years, do as much damage as you can with your TSP. And if you stay in longer, just keep riding at least some of it because then you can afford to take some risks. Like you've got a guaranteed job as long as you're in, you've got your retirement covered on the 401k side in case you mess everything else up. It won't be a lavish lifestyle, but you can survive. So like now you're 22, you're like, I've got my retirement set, I've got a solid job, I have the VA loan. I can afford to be a little risky. And by risky, I mean like, let's go buy a much more expensive fourplex than I probably would have otherwise and house hack. And so I love the house hack. Like you buy a duplex, you buy a fourplex, you live in one unit, you rent the others, or you buy like a big single family, rent bedrooms out to other service members. And in either of those scenarios, they're basically paying your mortgage down, paying your, for you to live. And then whatever you would have been paying to live in the house, you're pocketing. So not only are they paying your principal down and you're learning how to be a landlord and get all those benefits, but you're saving the $1,500, $2,000 a month that you would have been spending to live somewhere. You got to pay to live somewhere regardless. So why not pay to like not, if you have other people pay that, then now you're just saving that money. So now you're saving $2,000 a month that you wouldn't have been saving anyway. And you start investing that elsewhere. I mean, it compounds real fast. It's not hard. It's basic, like spend less than you eat or spend less than you make, invest in your 401k, buy some real estate that doesn't cost you really to own it. And then the biggest piece of this whole puzzle and where everyone messes up is they make a little extra money and they go and like, ooh, I can afford to go to the club or I can afford that Corvette. No, 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 no. Not yet. Not yet. Not until you make enough money that you don't ever have to work again. And then that money buys you the toy. Like I'm getting ready to buy a Porsche this year. Really will depend on what I find, but a fairly nice Porsche, whichever one of the three I end up buying will be very nice. And, I sold my sports car when I bought my second house. I sold my truck. I sold my Harley. And I've rolled all of that money into the next property, the next property, the next property, the next property. And now that I'm making, enough money, it's like, okay, it's time to go buy the toy again and actually live life and enjoy myself because I've always been a car guy. But I'm going to be paying off that purely off revenue that's coming in from either passive streams or the business. And I'm actually not allowed to buy it until I pay off every remaining dollar in like credit card debt, line of credit debt, whatever. So it's like the only debt on my name will be the mortgage and then maybe the car, depending on what I end up buying or how I buy it. But I'm also bringing in, I'm not allowed to do it till I make 100K in a month in revenue and I'm getting close. So it's like, okay, at that point, like, what does it matter if you buy a stupid car, right? But I'm able to do that because for the last decade, I have not done any of that. And man, if I had known that like 7 years, the first 7 years I was serving and I'd actually maxed out my TSP and been smart with my money, or here's one for you. Maybe if when I was stationing in San Diego County in 2011, 12, and 13, when the market was at the bottom, I had been like, hey, maybe I should house hack. That right there would be $1 million in equity.
Damn.
So, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right?
Yeah. That's a great advice right there for not just for military people, for anybody. As soon as you get that first job, start stashing away, 401k, Roth IRA, whatever. Just start stashing away and living frugal, living within your means at least. But one thing you mentioned is fourplex. Now, is that the max you can go on a VA is buying a fourplex?
The guidelines say otherwise, but I've never seen it happen. So the guidelines say like if we're both veterans and we partnered, then we could buy a sixplex, and if we brought a third guy in, we could buy a seven. Never seen it done. Never met a lender who was willing to do it because anything over that 4 units is now a commercial lender, right? And I don't know a single commercial lender who does VA loans. And so I've played. It's something to do with the guarantee on it, and so. The guideline says it's possible. I've had a couple lenders tell me they've done it or that they can do it. And I'm like, awesome. Can you introduce me to the person you did it with so that I can have them on my podcast? And immediately that same lender's like, oh, client privilege. I'm like, dude, quit stroking. Like nobody over here believes anything you're saying the moment you're hiding. If you're the only lender in the nation who's figured out how to do this and you're gatekeeping it, you're full of shit. Because if you knew how to do it, you would know there's a market, and my group is the market. So you should probably come and make that introduction so we can show you off.
Yeah, right.
Good for business, right?
Exactly.
Client privilege. Come on, dude.
What are you, a lawyer?
Yeah, like, bro, if I had done that loan, like if I found someone to do that loan, I would be screaming it all over the place. Like, it can be done. Look. But no.
So like a soldier, they get moved around, right? The whole army brat thing, that's the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
But move. So I mean, it seems like a good idea. Everywhere you get moved to, buy a house, and then when you get moved to the next spot, buy a house there. I mean, it seems simple enough, right?
Yeah, I have a love-hate with that advice, but yeah, everyone says like, "Oh, buy a house at every duty station." And I would just change it to buy an investment at every duty station because I think that's really the only thing that I have wrong with that is if you buy a house, implying it's something you're going to live in and you didn't run any numbers on it, then who knows if it's going to be something you can hold on to. So like what happens is some of these knuckleheads, they take the advice and then they like try to hold on to this thing forever and it may or may not cash flow. And in that situation where you don't know what you're buying and you just buy a house because that's what you heard you should do, um, everyone right now who's saying that seems like a wizard because they have, if they've served 20 years and they started doing that in, say, their second duty station, 2008, 2009, wow. Imagine anyone who bought a house in 2009, 2012, 2015, 2018, 2021. Yeah, they all look like geniuses for buying a house at every duty station. Back that up 20 years. And let's say you bought those houses in 90, 93, 96, 99. You did really well as long as you sold right before 2008. But if you EAS'd or retired in 2008, you don't look like a genius. Now, if you held them all through that, great. Most of you didn't. So it's like that's a great strategy if you can hold on to all of them, ride it out, and enjoy appreciation and principal pay down. The reality is most knuckleheads have no business buying a house and thinking it's going to be a very profitable thing because they're just buying, if you think through like when you think through like the normal home buyer, right? You're a married couple, maybe a kid on the way, like that is an emotional purchase. There is a spouse involved. There's, you want a nice place and a gated community with a pool and the best school district. Chances are that thing ain't cash flowing when you move out. So now you're out $300 a month when you go to your next duty station. Hope it goes up in value because either you lose the house or you lose $300 a month until it pays itself off. Which is why I like the house hack because it's like if you're buying a fourplex, most of the time those aren't luxury properties, so they're a little bit more reasonably priced per square footage. They also have a much higher chance of cash flowing when you move out, so at least it's paying you to hold on to it for the long term. If I'm getting an extra $1,000 a month or an extra $300 a month from every house I've purchased over 10 years, it makes it a lot easier to hold on to than if I'm paying an extra $300 a month. So I love the advice as long as you treat it as an investment when you're buying it and you analyze it as what's this going to look like 3 years from now when I'm not living here anymore.
Now, do you I just fell out of my head. Do you, do you mess with short-term rentals at all or anything else or corporate or like that?
You mean the kids running around in my Airbnb above my
Oh,
head
there
right
you
now?
go. Yeah, you did
Yeah,
mention
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's the only one I have right now, but it's the second or third one that I've run. So,
Okay.
yeah, I tried to turn it into an MTR. I actually had a 60-month booking and then they canceled on me like the day of check-in. And then Airbnb punished the hell out of me because I didn't refund them. And so I'm a little jaded on that right now. I've thought about going corporate rentals with it. I've thought about I actually thought about like finding like four like single entrepreneur dudes and just renting out rooms to them and being like, yo, this is gonna be the house that all the, real estate guys in town come to every Friday night and smoke cigars and hang out and network because I've got a badass porch for that. Um, Kind of playing with that idea still. Really, what it is I'm trying to get my buddy Dean. So if he listens to this, Dean, you're like my one stopping point. I'm trying to get him to move to Springfield. And I'm like, yo, if he moves here, then he'll get the master. I'll get three other guys, no problem. And it'll be a cool ass place. Um, we'll see what happens with that. But right now it's still a short term. So it makes between 3 and 3,500 a month. My all in expenses are 2,600 and it's a 4 bed, 2.5 bath upstairs, but it also has my 2-1 basement and my ADU that I'm living in downstairs. And so I'm getting paid not a ton, a couple $100 a month, but to have an office and a living space. So yeah, can't complain.
House hacking, it's the best, right?
Dude, this is my third time and I love it.
It's the best way, fastest way to build wealth. That's how I did it too. Hopped around houses, accumulated 4 houses, and then I started, having to buy them after that, like,
Yeah.
as investment properties.
No, yeah, I get it. You run into the rules of lending often favor you until they decide, that's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. But up until that point, I was able to put 3.5% down, which is good. And
I
not
love
it's
it.
not zero. I love zero,
Oh,
but
the FHA is still great.
yeah, exactly. If you're moving into a house, it's all that's the advice I give to youngsters. Of course, save your money and start buying a house right away, and don't go buy a McMansion because then you're screwed. Like you said, it ain't gonna cash flow. My
No.
yeah, the cookie cutter 3.2s, 1,500 square foot, 2,000 square foot. They're always going to be in demand, even in recessions. People want
Yep.
those houses. They're going to need a starter home, right?
Yep.
And and,
Absolutely.
and so a 6 bedroom monstrosity. Yeah, good luck in a
Yeah, you got a
recession.
very unique buyer. The reason I got this one for such a good price is because of that exact reason. It's 4,800 square foot. If you count the top and bottom, it's not technically a duplex, right? And so it's six, 3.5, 4,800 square feet, which is the upstairs is laid out very nicely for like entertaining. And the downstairs is like, hey, grandma was going to die. Let's move her in. And that's exactly what happened. And
Mhm.
so like it even has like the sliding chair that like goes up the stairs or whatever that I
Oh.
definitely get drunk and ride or put my dogs on. Um, and so like this house sat on the market for 5 months in 2021 when, things were flying off the shelves. And I was like, dude, what the heck? Oh, well, that's why. And so I was able to come in and I didn't negotiate hard, but I was like, yo, this is what I want. Also, I want your gun safe. And,
Ah.
and they were like, done. Thank you for making us an offer. We went out. And it's just because it's like an odd shaped house. It's a very unique buyer for this house.
Right.
Um, which I'm now slowly turning into an even more unique buyer because there's a shop out back that I turned into an ADU. So now it's like an ADU, a downstairs, and upstairs, all not permitted as triplex. So it's like you couldn't buy it as a triplex, but you can rent it out as three places. It's very
That's
weird.
true. Yeah. There was close to me, there was a dome home, in the
Nice.
middle of just a regular neighborhood. All of a sudden, for some reason in the 80s, they decided to build a couple of dome homes on this street. And
Hmm.
that guy had the hardest time to sell this thing, And that's why I went to go look at it one day. I was just curious because it was in the market forever. It went on, went off, went on, went off. Like, the people kept dropping it, and I think it was like wives are walking in there and they're like, no, there's no way we're buying this thing. And it had a nice pool. It was just the funkiest design, man. It had like 4 levels, but it was just this weird dome shape, man.
Hmm. Wild.
Yeah, I was gonna try to subject to that thing, and it didn't work out. But I'm kind of happy I didn't buy it because it had some foundation. How do you make the
Oh yeah.
foundation right in the dome? I don't know.
I yeah, I don't no idea.
But yeah, so I love looking at see, we see opportunities where people are like, yeah, I'm not gonna get that house. We see opportunities. Why has it been sitting there so long? I'm gonna go talk to
Yeah,
this guy, you know?
absolutely agreed.
Yeah, so that's cool, man. And so I saw some other thing. You mentioned TSP. What is a TSP exactly?
Oh, it's our 401k
Oh,
thrift
that's a
savings plan.
thrift savings plan. Okay.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
mentioned Roth. You're into the Roth too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a situation by situation, but I would say 90% of people are going to be in a lower or are probably going to be in a higher tax bracket when well, I mean, it's a hit or miss, but like when you join the military, you're making so little money those first few years. There's a pretty good chance you'll be in a higher tax bracket when you retire. So that's basically what I told, like, if you think that you're going to be in a higher bracket when you retire, Roth. If you think you'll be in a lower tax bracket when you retire, if you plan on making less money in retirement, traditional. Um, Personally, I think most service members will, if they do their finances right, they will absolutely be in a higher tax bracket at retirement than they are right, especially when they first join. So might as well enjoy the Roth.
Hmm. And life insurance. You did mention that. What? Why are you big on life insurance?
Oh, I'm not.
No?
I mean, I like term life insurance. I'm not a whole life IUL guy at all, and I'll fight that till I die. I think it makes sense for the problem is it's just like what we were talking about before. It's like um it's all in how it's sold, right? Like sub two is a great strategy as long as you're honest about it. Same with whole life. The problem is They're not. That is a unregulated, very unregulated industry, right? And so a lot of people can just like go get their little license and they go work for their little MLM and they have no idea what they're really selling. They don't even have their own policies and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is the best investment ever." Is it though? Because it's a cash preservation strategy and it's a great one. Like if you have capital and you can like say you overfund you have 600 or you have 100K, you dump it into an insurance policy, you overfund the policy so you don't have to wait 7 years to where you break even on it and can have a cash value. So you overfund the policy, you set up the policy correctly so it's actually a cash value and it's actually a non-direct recognition policy and all these things. And then you use it as a cash preservation strategy and you lend to yourself periodically. Like that's a great vessel. I mean, it would have saved me a bunch of money in divorce. It's there's a lot of benefits there. Problem is they pitch it as like this end all be all investment vehicle. And the reality is any index fund will beat that over time all day. And 90% of these insurance policies aren't set up to do what they're pitching you. So they're like, oh, you got to have, it'll pay you even when the money's lent out only on a non-direct recognition, not a direct recognition. And most of them are written as direct and they don't know the difference because they don't even own one. Or, you got to have this incredible cash value. Life is, so valuable. And then they write it with a massive death benefit and a minimal cash value benefit because the death benefit's what they get commission on. And so it's just an industry that I have issues with just because people either they are snake oil salesmen or they don't know what they're selling or how to set it up. And so there's a few guys that I trust that I'm going to go to and set my own up. Right now I have a term policy. I do plan on setting up a whole life. It's a convertible term, so I can do it to whole. But I plan on setting up an IUL or a cash value plan this year, but it'll be done very specifically with with one of those friends. So
it's so funny because like I've listened to Bigger Pockets and all these other podcasts, real estate podcasts, and every now and then you get one of those infinite banking life insurance guys. It sounds fascinating. It sounds while he's explaining it to it, I guess it sounds simple enough. I don't know. To me, it sounds still complicated still, even if they try to break it down for you. But it sounds
they can't make it simple. That's how you know it's bullshit.
And it's like to me, I mean, it's easy to get that the red ball syndrome, chase that red ball, whatever. The next thing that takes your focus off. But to me, I always fall back to I just want simple. And you mentioned index funds. I got money going into index funds. I got my 401k. Okay, I got some throw $100 a month at Bitcoin, whatever.
Yeah.
It's simple to me. I'm not gonna go. I have friends that are coin heads that, oh, you got to buy this one, you got to buy this, all these, and then you got to sell it over here. It's going to gain interest. Like, dude, that's just, and they all got wiped. They all got wiped out the last time it freaking crashed. But it's hilarious because all these things, and you said if you do the insurance thing wrong, you lose your ass there. But like, the easiest way, I'm just gonna buy a house every year. And then I'm just gonna, invest my money here and keep it simple. Yes, I might be losing a few bucks doing this or doing that, these fancy things. But in my mind, my head can't handle all that, man. I can handle simple.
Yeah, it's like the I can't think of what they call it right now. I forget the fancy word for it, but when people use a home equity line of credit to pay their mortgage down faster, they try to accelerate it. And I'm like, mathematically, it works. Nobody's that detail oriented or that disciplined to actually do it intentionally. Maybe somebody is. I'm sure there are people who do it. But for me, I'm like, I'd rather just not and have a simple life. Like I try to, as chaotic as my life is, I try to simplify. Like, if I'm doing something in my business and there's an easy communication tool, I'm like, it's tempting to just be like, ooh, let's jump on that. It's way better to be like, oh no, we've already got Slack that will communicate with Slack. Let's still just use Slack.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so I'm very much the like, can I scale through simplicity? Like an index fund is smarter than I am. It'll beat day trading 90% of the time, and it doesn't take time. Are there day traders that can smoke my index fund? Yes. Do they have anywhere near what I would consider a time ROI, like the amount of time they spend doing it to get that extra 4% that they're bragging about? Like, dude, I could have made way more than that 4% by just working at Taco Bell. let alone like, it's like the amount of time you're spending over there. Like, oh, I made an extra $100 this week by day trading. Oh, that's great, dude. At what, $2.5 an hour, I would have made $100 working a full-time job. Like, newsflash, you're not getting paid $2.50 an hour, so I'm winning. Like,
Their argument is, well, I did it while I was at work, so there you go.
there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so does my index fund, right? I haven't looked at that thing I check it once a month.
Oh man. Yeah, yeah.
BTSAX all day.
I do my best investments when I don't touch that shit.
Bingo, man. Bingo. Time fix. That's why real estate's so great. Like, as long as I talked about the guys who buy like a big mansion and then they can't hold on. But like, the name of real estate is, if you can hold on, you win as long as you hold long enough. Like, there are not many mistakes that you can't buffer on real estate if you can just afford to hold on for the long term. Anybody, all these guys who talk about, like, I bought in 2006, 2007 and the market crashed, I lost my ass on that house, only because you sold. If you'd been able to hold on, you'd be more than made up by now. Would it be the best return in the world? Probably not, but still better than selling in 2009 at a loss. Now, obviously, not everybody could have held on. I'm not blaming them or pointing fingers, but that's just the name of the game, is like, yes, you lost your shirt because you couldn't hold on. You bought it in a way and you weren't set up in a way to hold on. If you could have held on, you'd be fine. Like, over time heals almost all wounds in index funds and real estate. All these other fancy shiny things, like, if you make a mistake options trading, holding it longer doesn't save you. You're fucked. So, like,
It's in every industry because we're big on short-term rentals, we're big on mid-term rentals here and on the show, and I guess if you follow the industry and the gurus and this and that, it's all gone towards like okay, everybody started doing, let's just say, arbitrages out of apartments or single family homes, turned them into Airbnbs and this and that. But then it got to a point where, like, okay, now you got to do this. Now you got to get this big home. Now you got to install a pool. Now you got to install a hot tub. You got to install a golf course. It's like it's got to be this ultra uber luxury
you can
home,
afford to
or you ain't
install a
doing
golf
shit.
course. You're probably doing all right.
Yeah, I just like
You're like, I didn't buy a house on the golf course. I bought a house and built the
built a
golf
golf course.
course.
Okay.
Like, oh shit. All right, you're winning.
Perhaps a mini golf course. I might have misspoken.
No,
But
it's just, I get it.
But if you look at the gurus and online, you got to just put more and more and more. I'm like, yeah, but you got to maintain all that shit, and you got to deal with guests that are paying $1,000 a night, 2,000, and that's a different thing. I like to, for me personally, like I said, I'm more of a simple guy, lazy. If I get a Airbnb and it's making me 500 to $1,000 a month, I don't got to do very much. Or if it's a midterm rental, getting the insurance checks, and I don't got to do very much. I like the not having to do very much part where it just kind of works for me. That's because, like I said, my brain can't handle all that, and there's nothing wrong with it, and you could kind of scale a little bit. I'm cool being Walmart. I don't have to be Neiman Marcus. I don't want to be Neiman Marcus. I'm cool being Walmart.
My version of scaling the SDR game is buying hotels. They don't have the regulation issues, so there's a lot you can do there without as much headache. And now the hotel game is definitely more complicated. It's the same argument for, like, buying a residential rental property vice buying an apartment complex because of economies of scale. Like, at the hotel, like, we bought a 130 unit hotel in Tennessee, and we've got, full staff. I'm not the operating partner, so I'm not operating it. And, but there's a lot of the same benefits that you get with an Airbnb, but none of the regulation headaches because it's zoned as a hotel. So you can do stuff that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And that thing came with, 3 pools and 3 hot tubs and a wedding venue. So we already got all the fancy crap. So, but that's a whole different ball game, and I'm still learning it. So it's a mess.
And I bet it's a bit easier than having 130 Airbnbs spread out throughout
Oh
the
my
country.
God,
You have it all in one
would
spot.
never, would never. The only way you could do that, in my opinion, I'm sure there's people out there who could do it. The only way I could fathom doing that is if you hired an offsite, third-party property manager, because I'd go nuts if I had to manage that. Managing one's easy. I'm great with people. I like it. I live here. It's whatever. Managing 130, like, kill me now. And the problem is, you go and hire an outside property manager, you're paying them 20, 30%. Now where's your profit? Gone?
Hmm.
You make 5%. Well, you might as well go back to a long-term rental then.
Exactly. And So what else are you into? You like exotic cars, not exotic cars, but just fancy
I'm just
cars.
a car guy
You're
in
a car
general.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
And-
me some cars. I hiking, outdoors, travel, you know, hanging out with my son.
okay. That's good. That's good. And so I was getting into the exotic cars. I've seen online too, people can make money on those things. They get to drive a cool car for a while and then they go sell it, right? And they go make some money off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole thing there. What do they call it? Yeah, exotic car hacks or something like that. And I haven't watched the course, but I've paid for it. I was like, "Ah, I'll learn about this." And then I just decided it wasn't worth my time as far
Mm.
as like what may end up happening is that I just tell my assistant to watch it and I'm like, give me the cliff notes. So I'm like, it's just, I don't ever I've got it open on my desktop and it has been for like 4 months and I just haven't taken the time to sit and just watch a course.
Just
But
tell AI to break it down for you.
there you go. Yeah, that's what I should do.
So yeah, I see a theme here. You like simple.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's the way to
Absolutely.
go. Oh man. So it's been a great show. It's awesome having you on. And you give advice not just to military people, but to everybody, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say 90% of what we talk about applies to everyone, right? If I talk about a TSP strategy, the only difference is the civilian 401k is called something different. Like they're pretty much the same thing, different funds, but same idea.
Cool, man. And all right, what advice you got for people out there that's trying to get started in real estate?
Man, my favorite advice, at least as of late, is to really filter who you take advice from. So if the person you're listening to hasn't done what you want to do or hasn't achieved what you want to in the area that they are giving you advice, probably worth finding someone else, right? If you're fighting for your marriage and you want to stay married, probably don't listen to all your divorced buddies. They're gonna be like, bro, it's way better over here. Well, yeah, because that's your reality, and so the example I always give is like, if you want to be the best MMA fighter in the world, your mom loves you. She's got your best interest at heart. She's probably not who you're going to hire to teach you MMA. You're probably going to go find an MMA coach. But for some reason, when people get into fucking real estate, they're like, oh, I'm going to be a real estate investor. And then your mom or your dad or your brother or your cousin or whoever it is that has never invested in real estate, but also has heard horror stories, who still has your best interest at heart, is going to come up and be like, oh man, you don't want to do that. Tenants and toilets. And you're going to be like, oh yeah, my mom told me I shouldn't invest in real estate. Cool. Well, who should you listen to? Your mom who's never owned a rental property, or the guy over here with 100 of them who's living the life you want? Like, okay. And then same thing. If that guy's fat and out of shape, you don't listen to him about health advice. If he's divorced, you don't listen to him about marriage. You listen to him about real estate, and you can filter that. It's okay to have a mentor in an industry and be like, yo, I don't want this guy's social life, but he's great at this thing. Like,
Mhm.
that's fine. You don't have to listen to everything they do.
Mm. Pick and choose your mentors.
Absolutely.
Cool, brother. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. Where can people find you?
Ooh, the easiest spot is if you go to thebestpodcastguest.com. It'll drop a place where you can download a free link to my free PDF copy of my book, but more importantly, it's got all my socials there.
Yeah, you got a book on you to show it on the
Yeah,
camera
yeah.
right there.
Hang on. We got the I did
Ah!
until I threw it. Threw it. Clearly just so drunk right now. There you go. The No BS Guide to Military Life. So it's everything I wish I'd known when I joined the service.
That's pretty cool, man. Well, thank you again for hopping on. Thank you for your service, and hopefully we'll connect again in the future.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Live, Let, Thrive. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest in the world of Airbnb and all that entails. Bye-bye.